What's going on, YouTube? This is going to be a fortified defense guide. I've been slowly but surely getting questions in chat on when fortified defense is good, bad, the ugly, everything else in between. So fortified defense is good against Pierce. That's its main benefit. It's not terrible against magic, as you can see up here. It's -5, or it takes 5% more damage against magic, 15% more damage against Pierce, impact, and 20% less damage by Pierce. Therefore, it is really good on waves 1, 5, 9, 11, 12, 17, and 19. It's okay on magic waves, so it's not terrible necessarily to have a fortified unit on 3, 7, 8, 14, 15, and 20. So like you can get away with fortified on magic waves. It's not great, but it's usable, right? Like if you theoretically had like boars, for instance, on a magic wave, you can get away with it, right? Boars on 14, boars on 19 are not necessarily, 14 and 15 are not necessarily bad. They're not great, but they're not bad. Golems can harden, right, which makes them even stronger on those magic waves, and they're more beneficial, right? They're really bad, though, on impact waves. So no matter how you look at it, impact waves are its weak point. So waves 2, 4, 6, 10, 13, 16, and 18. If anybody's ever gotten a bunch of brutes on 6 when you've got, for instance, a bunk, you're going to leak bad. The age-old brute 6 against kingpins with bounty hunters, you're going to leak bad. So if it's bad against impact damage, then the best thing you can really pair it with is a swift tank. Excuse me. So swift tank would be something like Yozora or a Holy Avenger in this situation. Those are really your best counterpart with natural, fortified. You can get away with fortified having a natural tank, but it's best off having fortified swift rather than fort nat, but it's doable. The big thing you don't want is fortified and arcane. The reason why you don't want fortified and arcane is you will die on, as I said, 2, 4, 6, 10, 13, 16, and 18. There's 7 waves, excuse me, my brain can't count, 7 waves that you will for sure be really bad on. So like we talked about with arcane, you have your counterpart in natural. Fortified, you can kind of counterpart with either swift or natural. If you can make it, though, you're better off going swift. So like I often will have a boar or a samurai soul or even a golem, and I'll pair that with a Yozora, and now Holy Avenger, for instance. They complement each other's weak waves, and they're both relatively easy to get out in the mid to late game. That's kind of an option. Though, if you look through this list, I think realistically Fortified has some of the most impactful tanks. I think Bunk, being that it's actually a relatively good DPS dealer when you have things like healing on it, makes it a very compelling unit to utilize early game and late game. Boars, I still think, in my opinion, are some of the best tanks in the game for their slowdown and splash damage value, and it allows you to basically just place boars in the back, place a unit up front, and that's it. There's not a whole lot of splitting. You don't have to worry about a lot. You just place the boars and you let them run, you let them deal damage. They still do quite a bit of damage on a lot of waves, like wave 16, for instance. I believe a Red Eyes fully charging the entire length of the field will do somewhere on the lines of 6,000 or 7,000 damage on wave 16, and it's bad on that wave theoretically because of its tank type, but it still does a ton of damage because there's a large majority of units that are going to be coming at you, and that splash damage is going to deal more damage. You can get away with only having a fortified tank of, let's say, a Mudman Golem combo or a Eternal Wanderer Samurai Soul, but if you have something like Eternal Wanderer Samurai Soul, you're going to realistically want something a little bit tankier as a counterpart. If you're running Samurai Soul, for instance, they don't have a huge health pool, but they do relatively good damage. So they're kind of a semi-tank, off-tank, right? They do respawn and come back to life, right, with the same health pool. So a Samurai Soul that dies and comes back to life still theoretically has a larger health pool. I don't know if it's the same health pool. Regardless, when it comes back to life, it deals more damage. It still has a decent health pool. But if your only real options for Fortified are Harb, Bone Crusher, Oathbreaker, you're probably going to want to try to find something else for your tanks. Harbs are okay tanks early game because they do get a spawn that, again, has health. And they can spawn multiple units, therefore making them better in the early game. But they're not great mid to late game at all in terms of their tank value. Most units, especially as you get to the late game, like 18, they'll just get one shot. Most of those units are just going to die immediately, and they're not going to be usable at all. But you can get away with any of the other tanks seen here. You know, these four, or these two here, the Golem Mudman combo, in any capacity. That kind of, I think, does it pretty briefly for Fortified. It's a good tank type. I recommend it if you can, because boars especially. But don't be afraid if all you have for a tank is a Kingpin, for instance. People often forget that anglers actually do have quite a bit of health pool, right? So it seems bad, right? Like to have a one stack Kingpin. But it's still a decent damage dealer at 195. It's not great, but it's decent value. But you've got to look here. It's 4,830 health. That is more health than Golem and more damage than Golem. Now the DPS I think is about the same with the attack speed. You know, it gets down to the nitty-gritty. It's about the same DPS wise. But if you look, a Golem's only 405 and a Kingpin's 415. So it's not really that different in terms of its tank value for health. Health per gold. So keep in mind, you can use Kingpins, crappy Kingpins, as tanks. Not what I'd recommend, but you know, it's an option. Someone in chat said they have an illness that they don't want to upgrade Bounty Hunter unless it's full mana. That is something you'll have to overcome because realistically anything over 80 stack is considered valuable. But just by itself, it's good. It's good damage. It's good damage and it's good tank. So keep that in mind. It's still a solid tank. Yeah, there's nothing like armor in Legion, so realistically what you get for health and what its typing are, that's really it. Health and typing is really what it gives you in this game. But yeah, that's kind of that. If you guys have questions on fortified tanks in general, drop them in the comments below. I will do my best to answer anything that's quick enough to be answered. Otherwise, I will catch you guys next time. Please like, subscribe, join my Discord if you have any other questions. But peace out, guys.